What is up, heroes? This is Midnight Zero. Welcome to another week of the NCPL. This is going to be week number 8, and we are going up against Max, coach of the Gotlandish Gogoats. And as you might expect, as you can tell from what you're looking at right now, this was another busy week, and really, this was a really tough week from a team building standpoint. I'm really only just finishing the team about an hour or so before we're going to battle, because over the past couple days, I've really been flip-flopping on what I want to bring, how I want to bring it, not really sure of exactly what the solution is, talking with Sam in particular about it too. So I really haven't had the time to really settle down on my own team to make a more, higher production quality team builder, so I hope you guys don't mind. But real quick, let's go over his team. Obviously, you guys can see a lot of the mons he has. The first of which is Silvally. He has a steel, normal, and poison typing for it. It is, it's really good, in my opinion. It's got a great coverage, with access to stuff like Return, Ice Beam, Outrage, Draco Meteor, Flame Charge, like a bunch of different things, Rest Talk, Swords Dance. It can really do a lot. And the typing he has is great for his team in particular. It's his only steel type, so I fully anticipate him to bring it this week in response to my steel types and just some of the power I have. But yeah, it's good. It's good. And before I want to get into the next Pokemon, I do want to give a quick shout out to Noah for showing me this song. It is the Classroom theme from Mario Strikers Charged, and it is so chill and just like a great background music. But anyways, moving on to the second Pokemon is Tapu Bulu. Now look at Tapu Bulu's stats. It's got a pretty high attack, 130, with, stab, grass type moves. But what's really cool is Grassy Surge, bringing that grassy terrain every single time it switches in and boosting its grass. It's already stab boosted grass type attacks by 50% more, doing lots of damage, healing it at the end of turn as well. It can hit super hard with Wood Hammer, with Horn Leech, gets access to Superpower, Stone Edge, and it's his Zmon. So he can use stuff like All Out Pummeling, or Continental Crush, or Bloom Doom, which will just hit like an absolute truck. And it also gets, decent bulk as well. But its main crippling factor is its speed tier, which means it can be outsped by more offensive mons typically, and is 4 times weak to Poison. But that's kind of all there really is to Tapu Bulu. He has been bringing relatively bulkier sets in the past, so that's what I'm anticipating, but an offensive Bulu is scary. Moving on to the next Pokemon, we got Dragonite, and Dragonite has been a monster ever since its birth in Generation 1 with that monstrous attack stat, great all-around bulk with access to multi-scale, meaning the first time it gets attacked from full health, it's doing half damage, which is super great for boosting moves. It's great for weakness policy sets. It gets access to Roost. It can Dragon Dance. It's got a great mixed move pool. It is a great Pokemon. That's just kind of what it comes down to. It's a great setup sweeper. It's a great bulky pivot. It's a great banded user. It's a great life orb user, weakness policy, all those wonderful things. But next up, we've got Infernape. Infernape, a former friend, now foe. I loved using Infernape. It's got 2 great stabs. It hits so hard with, a Life Orb, with Expert Belt, access to an incredible move pool. It's not his Z move, Mon, luckily, so it doesn't get to take advantage of stuff like Acid Downpour, or Bloom Doom, or, Tectonic Rage, Gigavolt Havoc, a bunch of different Z moves it could use, but it typically runs a Scarf, or a Banded, or a mixed Life Orb set. I don't really know exactly what to expect. Max and I had Infernape together in the co-op league. We both know about, how great Infernape is, so I fully anticipate him to utilize it to the fullest. Moving on, we have Mega Blastoise. Mega Blastoise is a really bulky, but still pretty offensive Mega, with access to Mega Launcher and Scald, Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, Aura Sphere. It's got really solid coverage to hit just about, a lot of different threats. It's also a decent Rapid Spinner, not my favorite by any means, but it is a form of hazard control for something like Dragonite. And yeah, it's decently bulky too. It's got, base defense of 120, base def of 115, so it's, a solid mixed attacker, can get some heavy hits off too, and he's been using it very well up until this point. You can see he's got 6 kills and 7 deaths with it, meaning he's brought it every single week, and yeah, similar with Infernape. But moving on to the next mon, we've got Reuniclus. Reuniclus is a mon that we both like because we watched Joey Pokemon use it in the UCL and saw how dominant it was. It hits so hard without base 125 special attack, and it's so bulky with its base 110 HP. So it's got great mixed bulk, it's got access to Regenerator, it's got access to reliable recovery and recover, it's got access to immunity from hazards and status. With Magic Guard, it can boost with Calm Mind. It can also hit, physical or especially bulky mons on the physical side with stuff like Psyshock. It's got a solid move pool with access to stuff like, I think, Energy Ball, Signal Beam, Focus Blast, Shadow Ball, which just hits about everything. This Reuniclus, though, is going to be experiencing some hardcore 4 move slot syndrome this week. Debating between Recover, Calm Mind, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, Hidden Power Fire, Hidden Power Ice, all of those things. So it's a good mon, but it can only do so much with 4 moves. Moving on, it says he has Rhyperior. He actually ended up trading Rhyperior for Jolteon. Jolteon is a really good pivot for him. He was incredibly weak to electric types before, so he ended up getting a Volt Absorb mon, which is a pretty cool idea, and it's pretty helpful for countering my Thundurus. It is great for momentum with Volt Switch and such. It also gets access to stuff like Shadow Ball. It's a lot of speed that I think his team lacks otherwise, and it can also hit decently hard. Next up is Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales, the Hail Setter. He's not running a Hail team, but he can run Aurora Veil, of course. It hits decently hard. It has, only base 81 special attack, but it can hit 100% accurate blizzards in the hail. It gets access to Freeze Dry, which is really cool, and Moonblast as well. I think it also gets... Does it get Shadow Ball? I don't think it gets Shadow Ball, actually. But yeah, one thing that could be really annoying is it gets Encore, which could really be a hassle for my team, or at least the walls of my team. So yeah, its coverage is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a threat, that's for sure, especially given how weak my team is to ice. Moving on to the next one, we've got Golbat. Now, Golbat is a really good defensive defogger in my opinion. It's kind of like a value Crobat in my opinion. It gets access to stuff like Super Fang, which is really effective, Roost, which is great reliable recovery. It can defog, it can taunt, it can Brave Bird, it can U-turn. It's got a solid move pool in my opinion. Yeah, I fully anticipate a Golbat because it's easily his best form of hazard control on his team. And if he's bringing something like Dragonite, he definitely needs it. Next up, a little tired. We got Liepard. Liepard, I loved using Liepard in the TGFA Season 2, or last season before it became the NCPL, of course. It was so fun using Prankster. It's great for encoring things. It's great for T-waving things. It's great for getting some, stat drops. It's great for knocking things off. It can be used with Copycat and Nasty Plot and Dark Pulse as a potential sweeper. It's a really cool, in my opinion, utility mon. It's great for team support. I don't think it works too well with his team in particular, so I don't know if he's going to be bringing it or not, but it could be a bit of a hassle for bulkier mons on my team. And the next mon we've got is Rotom. He hates Rotom. He hates Rotom. It really can only put in work as a Scarf mon and going for Volt Switches. I mean, it can also run Hex, it can run Will-O-Wisp and such, but it's not bulky enough to take on hits very well. It's not offensive enough to, hit hard enough. It's really just kind of chip damage and momentum, more so than anything else. Next up, we got Kabutops. Now, Kabutops, I'm, surprised every single time I have to go up against Kabutops how hard it can actually manage to hit between its, stab coverage of Rock with Stone Edge and Water with Waterfall, access to Life Orb, SD, and coverage move, whether it's X Scissor. I think it also gets Rapid Spin actually, but I'm not 100% sure. It also gets Priority and Aqua Jet, and it can really threaten teams. Weak Armor can of course boost its speed, though lowering its defense. And 115 attack is not anything to laugh at, especially, slap a Life Orb, get an SD up. It's putting in a lot of work, and I always have difficulty going up against it. Next up, Frogadier, and it's able to run Protean, which is pretty cool. It, it's got great coverage, just like Greninja. That's kind of all there is to it. It's just a worse Greninja. It's a lot more frail, it doesn't hit as hard, but it's really cool in in that it can, change up types. It can, get up spikes. It can go for ice beams. It's a great scarf user. He's liked using it a bit more than I anticipated. And yeah, next up in the lastly is Persian. I think Persian's pretty bad. Kind of simple. Simply put, I just think Persian's not that great. It has really meager attack and special attack, though it gets access to stuff like stab hyper voice, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of really all there is to it. It gets technician boosted hidden power, which is kind of interesting, but I don't really anticipate it much. You can see at the beginning of the year he had Kartana and traded, or essentially free agency that for Tapu Bulu, and then he traded to Noah his Clefable for Silvally after Noah used his free agency to get Silvally. Kind of an interesting, series of events, but yeah, so that's his team. It's got a lot of really great coverage mons. It's not great from a defensive standpoint, in my opinion. Silvally really helps to round it out, and Golbat helps to round it out. But what's really threatening is these B tier picks. These B tier picks hit so hard on a bunch of different speed tiers. They've got great coverage moves, and they all hit hard while being decently bulky themselves. These B tier picks gave me so much trouble. So with that said, let's get into my team for this week. Alright, so here we are. You guys can see, of course, every single mon that I'm bringing. Let's go one by one through them all. The first one is going to be Mega Scizor. Now, Mega Scizor, it's great. I love Mega Scizor. It's run the typical set. We've got Bullet Punch, U-Turn, SD, and Roost. When you look at his team, Bullet Punch can do a lot of damage to, stuff like Tapu Bulu, can do a lot to Alolan Ninetales, which is a threat. It can, get some good chip on just about anything. But more importantly, U-Turns on a lot of his team. There isn't a lot that can do a ton to my Mega Scizor potentially, and I can U-Turn out on it. There are a lot of things that I force out and gain momentum with U-Turn. And that's kind of why I brought it. It's also, oops, there's a calc, really helpful from a defensive standpoint. You'll notice I'm running a lot of bulk. It's allowing me to take a lot of, either special or physically defensive hits, roost them off potentially, kind of taking some pressure off the rest of my team because I don't really have a lot to take on a lot of his offensive threats. And this is kind of my nice in between, my pivot. And with regards to the specific EVs, the HP and Spadef allow me to live a modest max special attack HP fire from Reuniclus, which is pretty cool. The defense, the one extra point in defense helps me take close combats from Life Orb, Max Attack, Jolly, I think Infernape. So I only take 51% max, which is pretty cool. I have the attack so that I do a minimum of 50% to max defense bold Reuniclus, which means I OHKO it after an SD for sure, and even if it wants to roost up on an anticipated U-turn, I'm guaranteed to at least do some damage to it. And yeah, that's the main mentality here. This is kind of like my glue. This is kind of my pivot, and it could be a late game sweeper if, things get weakened up. Next up, we've got Garchomp. We're running a really interesting set this week. We got a really interesting set this week. I'm excited to talk about this one. So the Yachi Berry came last, so I'll get into that later. But first of all, I wanted this Garchomp to just plow through his team. Look at what he has for Garchomp. He doesn't have anything for Garchomp. Maybe Golbat, but Garchomp just puts in so much work against his team. So I definitely wanted to bring it. I definitely wanted to not have to lock myself into one move. So I'm bringing Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Poison Jab, and SD. Earthquake and Dragon Claw hit just about everything hard. Poison Jab is there for Ninetales and Tapu Bulu especially. What is worth noting, though, is that Earthquake will be weakened in Grassy Terrain, which is, less than fortunate, of course, but Dragon Claw still does plenty, especially at +2 if I anticipate a potential, Tapu Bulu switch in or something like that. And what's really neat is this EV spread. So what I'm actually going to do now is pull this up. So you guys can see I've taken some pretty intense notes. 120 attack is to OHKO Tapu Bulu with Poison Jab. I OHKO Dragonite after Rocks. I have a good chance to OHKO Blastoise after 2 Rock switch-ins at +2, even if he invests over 100 HP, or just about, until he invests, more than 120, 140 HP EVs. I 2-KO Reuniclus max defense when I'm at +2, which is pretty cool. I 2-KO Rotom, just normal. I OHKO offensive Liepard after Rocks without a boost. I OHKO Kabutops without a boost. I OHKO Frogadier with Earthquake, regardless of hazards. 200 speed is there, so I outspeed Silvally and lower. Basically, you know, the base 95s. I also outspeed Frogadier, which is really cool. I could have invested 220 attack to Oko Ninetales after rocks, but it just wasn't worth it. And then the HP and defense is to live 2 waterfalls, or 1+2 waterfall from Life Orb, Jolly, Kabutops. And the Spadef is there so that I live an HP Ice from max special attack, Timid, and Fernape. That's without the Yachi Berry, which is really cool. And then I decided to add the Yachi Berry so that I live a Blizzard from max special attack, Timid, Ninetales, and that's even if I come in on rocks. And that's including the hail damage afterwards, which is so cool, especially given that I Oko it back. Or at least almost Oko it back. You know, if hazards are up, that's a different story. I live a Life Orb Frogadier's Ice Beam and Oko it back. I live a +2 Aqua Jet plus a max special attack Timid HP Ice from Nape. So he could have SD'd with his Kabutops and gone for, you know, an Aqua Jet anticipating me to kill him, and then bring in Infernape to try to revenge kill me with Hidden Power Ice, but I live that afterwards with the Yachi Berry, which is really cool. And I take about 50 from Modest Life Orb, Hidden Power Ice from Jolteon. So this is a really cool, in my opinion, Garchomp set. I really like it. I really hope it gets to put in work. It's just going to kind of try to plow through his team. It's just going to try and put on a ton of damage. And hopefully it can break through his walls, like Mega Blastoise and Reuniclus and such. But moving on, we've got Thundurus T, we got Choice Scarf. I wanted some speed control, and I definitely wanted something that will outspeed Dragonite at +1. So I definitely want to run a Choice Scarf Mon, and in my opinion, Garchomp just has so much more wall breaking power this week, so I didn't want to, you know, limit it. But yeah, between Thunderbolt and Flash Cannon, Flash Cannon is there for Alolan Ninetales, which is really scary. It also does about 70-75 to Tapu Bulu. Thunderbolt is there for all of his water types, pretty much. Hidden Power Ice is there for a Dragonite in particular, and U-Turn is there because I don't want to risk losing momentum on a Jolteon switching in on my Volt Switch and stopping me in my tracks because of Volt Absorb. And plus, U-Turn does a decent amount of damage. I think it does like 30% to a mixed Reuniclus, so that's still like good damage in my opinion. There's not too much more to it than that. I also wanted this in particular in case he wanted to bring something like Rotom or Jolteon, because, you know, you can see the next month Suicune. I'm definitely going to be baiting some potential electric type attacks, and as long as Thundurus is there, it's going to be kind of questionable as to whether or not you really want to go for that and give me that momentum. Okay, Suicune. I love Suicune. And you're probably surprised, because at first it looks like Suicune is not good this week. He's got Tapu Bulu, he's got Jolteon, he's got Rotom. It's probably not going to happen, right? But outside of those Mons, Suicune actually does really well, and it's one of the few things that I can actually use as a mixed wall yet again. It's got great defense, allowing it to take hits from Infernape decently well, even Dragonite as well. Even something like Thunder Punch does, I think, like 32% or so, unless it's like Life Orb. But yeah, what I can do is I can take those hits decently well. I can set up on most things. I am super scared of a Reuniclus setting up on me, or even a Dragonite setting up on me, because my Skulls aren't going to be doing much to it, though it would risk the burn. So I do have Roar, especially given I'm bringing hazards with the last 2 Mons. I have Roar will be really helpful at building up chip damage to help out my Thundurus T, my Garchomp, and my Scizor, of course. Scald is there to hit just about anything to get those burns, which again would help if possible. At +1, I don't even really fear Alolan Ninetales, Life Orb, Freeze Dry, and Kabutops is actually pretty scary in my opinion, but I don't want that to set up on me, so I can actually roar that out as well. This is a great switch into Frogadier. It's a great switch into just about everything except for Bulu and Ninetales and Rotom and Jolteon. But this could also be really helpful against Silvally and Mega Blastoise as well, given I can Calm Mind up on it. Yes, so that's what I'm bringing. You know, it's typical max defense, max HP. That's just kind of what it is. I can, set up and roar out Reuniclus so that it can't set up on me and potentially hit me harder. As far as grassy terrain, that actually could help me out a lot with resting up and, you know, avoiding 3-hit KOs. So yeah, I hope Suicune is able to put in the work this week. It is, again, one of my few walls. Next up, we've got Garbodor, your waifu. I wanted to bring something that could get up hazards because he doesn't have a lot of great hazard control. He's got, a couple rapid spinners, he's got Defogger and Golbat, but my hazard setter, my rock setter actually beats Golbat one-on-one, so I didn't want to... So I figured it wouldn't be too big of a deal if I tried to hazard stack, and especially given I could set up with any one of my Mons really on Golbat. If he does bring that and I pressure that Golbat hard enough to go for Defog, I could take advantage of it and potentially sweep / win the game with the rest of my Mons. So totally fine with that. I also think the chip damage will be super helpful for my other Mons like Scizor and Garchomp in particular. If I get up a spike and a T-spike, that's 24% or 25% every single turn, or a Mon will take if I switch it in, or if I roar something in, it'll take 25%, after the toxic damage. I really only want one toxic spike because I don't anticipate a lot of his Mons to stay in for more than 1 or 2 turns, and it would take more than 3 turns to do more damage with 2 T-spikes as opposed to 1 T-spike. The Gunk Shot is there to get damage off, and Clear Smog is so that Reuniclus doesn't set up all over me. Same goes for Dragonite, forcing it to attack me and kill me, which, again, will rack up damage with Rocky Helmet and potentially Aftermath as well. This is also a great way to get some really appreciated chip damage on Infernape and Tapu Bulu. Okay. Moving on to the last Mon, we've got Bronzong. We're bringing a little bit of heat this week with Bronzong. I really wasn't sure what to do with this Bronzong. I wanted to bring an Imprison, Calm Mind, Shadow Ball set with rocks, but I ended up deciding against it. I ended up deciding to go for, first of all, Heat Proof, because I don't anticipate a lot of ground type attacks just in general because of grassy terrain potentially, and yeah, in general I run Levitate. But he also doesn't have a lot of great ground type attack users. Now that Rhyperior is gone, he could be running Earthquake on Infernape or Dragonite, but if he could also just run Fire Punch, which would probably make a lot more sense more often than not for Mega Scizor as well. So I fully anticipate Fire Punch or HP Fires to come my way, so Heat Proof is going to be the set this week. And Iron Head is there for consistent damage, regardless of his slower threats like Mega Blastoise, especially Reuniclus though. Earthquake is there to hit about everything else, Infernape, especially Jolteon. I am kind of Jolteon weak. I was considering Psychic because it'll do more damage because it's stabbed to stuff like Golbat, to something like Infernape, but I really wanted to be able to hit Jolteon hard more so than anything else. Same goes for Kabutops, and I didn't want to get completely destroyed by Liepard if that decided to switch in on an anticipated Psychic. So that's why Earthquake is there. And then we have Heal Block. Heal Block is there because it helps me out a lot with Golbat and especially Reuniclus. What I can do is I don't take more than 31% from a very defensive, what's it called, like Calm Mind, Reuniclus, Shadow Ball, which is what I potentially anticipate, and I don't take much from Hidden Power Fire at all either. So what I can do is actually Heal Block so that it can't recover if it does have recover, and then I can Iron Head it over and over, and it'll do like 15% or so each turn, which will add up. It'll definitely add up. I can see what kind of a set it has outside of, does it have Hidden Power Fire, does it have Shadow Ball, does it have Psychic, does it have Calm Mind, and that sort of thing. Get some useful chip damage, put it in range of a potential +2 Earthquake, put in range of potential +2 Dragon Claw, put in range of a U-turn more importantly. So that's kind of why that is there. It also helps out with Golbat, given that I can chip away at that thing and I actually beat it 1v1 even if I don't have Psychic, because I can Heal Block and then Iron Head over and over and over. And I will be doing probably 60% to 70% across 5 turns, whereas, well, I mean, if he wants to roost afterwards on the turn that I try to Heal Block him again, he'll be losing, 15 to 20% chunks, so I do eventually beat him, which is kind of sucky, but it is what it is. And Bronzong is also really helpful for Alolan Ninetales. It is helpful for Frogadier. As a Steel type, it takes a lot of pressure off of Scizor too, which is really important to this match, so that's why it's there. I want to get on my hazards ASAP because of Dragonite and Golbat and Alolan Ninetales, and all of that chip damage is going to be super helpful as I hopefully force switches a lot because I'm gaining momentum with U-turn from both of my U-turners, and hopefully can eventually sweep with Scizor or Garchomp or Thundurus. But yeah, that's the plan. Max is a really good battler. He's been struggling a little bit this season, but I don't take him lightly in the slightest. He knows how I like to play and can definitely can definitely take this one from me. So it should be a good match. I hope you guys are excited for it. But until that match, this is Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.